It all happened in broad daylight, a busy parking lot in Yucaipa, California. Families shopping, children playing, cars moving, and yet, in the blink of an eye, 7-month-old Emmanuel Haro vanished. Rebecca Haro, his mother, claimed she had been attacked from behind, knocked unconscious, and when she woke, her baby was gone. On paper, it sounded like a nightmare, the kind that shakes a community to its core. But neighbors, like Heather Walker, who watched closely that day, noticed details that didn't match the story being told. Small gestures, subtle shifts in behavior, moments that didn't add up. They raised questions that would haunt the town for weeks. The parking lot, wide and fully visible from every angle, should have been a stage of chaos if the abduction occurred as described. Screams, cries, a struggle, anything would have been seen by someone. Yet, there was silence. Step by step, the neighbors began reconstructing what they had witnessed. Rebecca walking toward her car, her posture steady, her stride even. The moment cameras and news crews arrived, something changed. An abrupt shift in movement, a limp that hadn't been there moments before. To Heather and those observing, it seemed rehearsed, almost staged. If grief was genuine, why would it only appear under the lens? As whispers of doubt began circulating, neighbors compared their observations. The impossible sequence became more apparent. A violent abduction, no witnesses, no noise, no chaos, just a baby gone. Every detail, every pause, every gesture painted a picture that clashed violently with Rebecca's account. For the people of Yucaipa, grief and suspicion intertwined. The disappearance was no longer just a tragedy to mourn. It was a puzzle demanding answers. Every neighbor who remembered the day knew the truth could not be silenced. They began to piece together the story, not through speculation, but through careful observation, replaying the moments in their minds, before attention, after attention, what was seen, what was claimed, and what remained impossible to explain. And in that quiet reconstruction, a haunting question emerged. Could the story told to authorities be the same story that had really happened? Or had something else, hidden and unsettling, taken place in that bright, public parking lot?
The quiet streets of Yucaipa had never felt so heavy. Days had passed since Emmanuel Haro disappeared, but the absence of the 7-month-old baby was felt in every corner, every home, every whispered conversation. The community that once took comfort in ordinary routines now found itself gripped by grief and disbelief. Heather Walker and other neighbors replayed the day endlessly in their minds. The details were small, almost ordinary, but they carried immense weight. Rebecca Haro, Emmanuel's mother, had walked toward her car without hesitation, her posture upright, her steps smooth. Yet, as soon as cameras arrived, she limped, her body shifting under the public gaze. To Heather, it wasn't subtle. It was the signal, a crack in a story that didn't add up. Neighbors who had witnessed the moment remembered it vividly, their minds holding on to every nuance, the way Rebecca's hand rested on the car door, the pause before she turned toward the lens, the sudden limp that seemed rehearsed. Every observation created tension. The parking lot itself, a wide open space clearly visible from all angles, made the story of a violent abduction seem impossible. Cars passed, families shopped, pedestrians moved freely. Any struggle would have been seen, any cry would have been heard. And yet, according to Rebecca's account, the unthinkable had happened without a single witness. The impossibility pressed heavily on those who had observed firsthand. Questions arose quietly but insistently. Could such an abduction really occur in plain sight without chaos, noise, or intervention? Could a mother be struck unconscious and lose her child without a single person noticing? Every neighbor wrestled with these contradictions. The grief of Emmanuel's disappearance became inseparable from doubt about the story they were being told. The emotional weight was suffocating. This wasn't just about a missing child. It was about trust, about the invisible thread that binds a small community. The neighbors lit candles, whispered prayers, and spoke Emmanuel's name with sorrow and love. Some wept openly, others spoke softly, fearing judgment. But underneath every act of mourning was a sharp edge of suspicion. The inconsistencies in Rebecca's behavior, the impossible sequence of events, the silence in the parking lot, they gnawed at the collective conscience. And yet, grief transformed into resolve. Ordinary people, Heather Walker and others, began their own quiet investigation. They reconstructed the day in painstaking detail, before attention, after attention, the moments when gestures shifted, when posture changed, when the impossible seemed to unfold. They compared vantage points, noted every small inconsistency, and held on to memories that contradicted the official narrative. In Yucaipa, memory became evidence. Observation became testimony, and grief became determination. The neighbors realized that while authorities collected statements and analyzed evidence, they carried something no file could hold: the lived reality of the events, the truth seen with their own eyes. By the end of these days, a chilling realization settled over the community. The disappearance of Emmanuel Haro had broken the rhythm of the town, and the story being told might not be complete. The grief remained, but it was now sharpened by suspicion. The people of Yucaipa would not let Emmanuel's story be silenced. They remembered, they questioned, and they vowed to hold on to every detail until justice and truth were revealed. The streets of Yucaipa had returned to their usual quiet, but for those who had witnessed that fateful afternoon, the story was far from over. Heather Walker and other neighbors began to piece together the events in their minds with painstaking detail. Every step Rebecca Haro took, every subtle gesture, every pause under the gaze of news cameras became part of an invisible timeline. The parking lot, wide and fully visible, was a stage for a mystery that didn't add up. Cars passed steadily, families moved in and out of stores, and yet, according to Rebecca's account, a violent abduction had taken place with no witnesses, no struggle, no sound. This silence became evidence in itself, a quiet alarm to those who had been observing closely. Neighbors began sharing memories, comparing vantage points, and mapping out movements in their minds. Step by step, they reconstructed the sequence: Rebecca walking normally, the arrival of the cameras, the sudden appearance of a limp. Every shift in posture, every glance, every hesitation became a clue. The story told through actions did not match the story told through words. This reconstruction was not speculation, it was careful observation, a community holding on to truth when official channels seemed slow to provide answers. The silence of the lot, the open visibility, the impossible nature of the abduction, all of it pressed heavily on their minds. And as they reconstructed, a new awareness emerged. Perhaps the official narrative was incomplete, and the truth lay hidden in the small details that only attentive eyes could catch. This silent investigation by ordinary people began to create its own evidence, its own narrative, and a stronger sense that justice for Emmanuel depended on uncovering the discrepancies. Weeks after Emmanuel's disappearance, a shocking revelation shook Yucaipa. Rebecca Haro, under the weight of investigation and mounting evidence, began to make admissions that confirmed the community's deepest suspicions. The story that had been presented, a sudden abduction in a public parking lot, was not as it seemed. Neighbors who had followed the events closely, including Heather Walker, now saw the pieces fall into place. The limp, the hesitation, the contradictions, they were not accidental. They were signals of a truth that had been hidden from everyone, a truth that could no longer be silenced. The grief of losing Emmanuel transformed into anger and determination. Questions that had been whispered behind fences and across porches became demands for accountability. How could a child be harmed by the very person who was supposed to protect him? How could grief have been performed while a baby's life hung in the balance?
Authorities confirmed that inconsistencies in Rebecca's statements, combined with the detailed observations from neighbors and evidence gathered during the investigation, pointed toward deliberate deception. The community's silent vigilance had played a crucial role in revealing these cracks in the narrative. And as the story broke, a haunting realization settled over Yucaipa. Emmanuel's life had been stolen, and for a time, so had the truth. But now, with a confession emerging, the first real step toward justice could finally begin. The streets may have returned to quiet, but the community's memory would not fade. They remembered Emmanuel, they saw the truth, and they would carry it forward, demanding accountability, raising their voices, and ensuring that the cries of a 7-month-old would never be silenced again.
As the truth about Emmanuel Haro emerges, the streets of Yucaipa carry a weight that no silence can erase. The confession of Rebecca Haro has revealed the hidden story, but Emmanuel's absence still haunts the hearts of everyone who knew him, or even just heard his name. Now, more than ever, the community's voice matters. We call on you, wherever you are watching from, to not remain silent. Every comment, every share, every voice helps keep Emmanuel's story alive and ensures that justice will not be delayed. The next court appearance for Emmanuel's parents is set for September 4th. This is our chance to make a stand, to demand answers, and to show that we will not let a child's life be forgotten. Think back to every detail you've heard in this story: the wide parking lot, the impossible abduction, the sudden limp, the contradictions, the careful observations by Heather Walker and other neighbors. These are the small truths that built the foundation for the confession and that now guide us toward justice. As a community, we must remain vigilant. Share the story, talk about it with friends and family, raise awareness, let the world know that Emmanuel Haro mattered, that his life and the truth about his disappearance cannot be silenced. And to those who have supported this channel, thank you for helping us cross 1,000 subscribers. Your support brought us here, and together we can press forward to 2,000, 3,000, and even 5,000 subscribers. Every subscription, every share, every comment is a stand against injustice. Let's keep building this community that fights for the voiceless, for those who cannot defend themselves. Emmanuel's story is not over. The next chapter will be written in court, but the voice of the community will echo far beyond those walls. Wherever you are, whatever you can do, use your voice, share the truth, stand for justice, and together, let us ensure that Emmanuel Haro's name will never be forgotten.